Why, hi there. I'm Ron Chuckett. And this is a first live stream I've done on my own channel. Let me get in front of the camera for a while. And I wanted to talk about something that is near and dear to me and quite a few of my friends over the last 2 years, which is our work with FanSided. FanSided, if you don't know, is run by Meredith Corporation, who owns Time Magazine, who owns Sports Illustrated, who created a network of 300 or so blogs, one for every of the major, the North American Big Four teams, most of the major colleges, and a whole bunch of entertainment sites. Started, I believe, in Kansas City with the Best Brothers, and then followed through. They just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And what they do is, they get young writers and old writers like yours truly to write on a regular basis for very little money. And so today it came out. The link is in the description, where Deadspin, who pretty much will shred everybody at least at one point, got around to FanSided. And without getting into the specifics of the article, if you're interested, read the article. Everything in that really was true. There wasn't anything that caught my eye going, no, you didn't really report that right, or whatever. And in fact, I think sometimes they were kind of too generous when it comes to the money. So I'm not going to specifically talk about the money part of it, but there are a number of places, including FanSided, and I guess SB Nation, and certain and others that are no longer with us in the realm of online writing, that do pay per performance. You write content, you get X amount of page views, and you get paid X amount per 1,000 page views. I think Yahoo, which had a pretty successful racket going for a few years, I think paid $1.25 for 1,000 page views. I'm not going to tell you specifically what I got paid. I have friends that work at FanSided. I still like a lot of, I'm not really down on my experiences from there, but like I said, there's a lot of truth, and it was all true, that what I read in that article from Deadspin. So let me walk you through the process. Reading through the comments at Deadspin, you read commenters talk about the poor quality of the written content, and then you hear others talk about slave labor. What places like FanSided can do is you get your foot in the door to write about whatever it is your passion is. Any of the four major sports. There's now a whole bunch of entertainment sites. And, if you're good enough, you can become a paid staffer, and then it kind of goes from there. Paid staffer means that you pretty much do everything. You're responsible for meeting a quota of posts per month. And if you have a co-editor, which I always had when I covered the Washington Nationals, we made our quota. It was easy to make the quota. He would do 25, I would do 25, and whatever the contributors would do there. And yes, it wasn't very good that you got paid the way you did, but that's how all internet writing, unless they're paying per piece, that's how you're going to get paid. It's all paid per performance. Is it legal? Well, they have lawyers that tell you that they are. And even if you met the quota but didn't earn enough from your performance, you were given X amount per month, just if you met the quota. One of the things that they talk about in the article, which is absolutely true, is that you end up working 30 hours a week, which is great if let me back up. And so you are paid a lot less than a minimum wage for working a 30-hour week. When in the season, which was always slower for us than the off season as far as reads are concerned. You had a game pretty much because it was baseball. You had a game every night to cover. We chose to do a lot of coverage on social media, specifically on Twitter, because that was the best way to get community involvement, to understand what they wanted to see, how they felt, how they didn't feel, and it was enjoyable. And also because you had to write about things later on, it was a good way to, for me anyway, to put my thoughts in, to take notes. Essentially, you're just taking notes in public, learning along the way. And we did very, very well with that site. All things considered, the person that has taken over that site has done tremendous work, and he's finally getting the that his work is paying off. But it comes at a cost. If you've ever run a website or even run your own small business, you understand that you're going to do a lot of hours that you're never going to get paid for. That's part of the. It is what it is. That's what it is. I'm in my 40s. I'm 46. I have a significant disability. If you're not subscribing to any of the channels that I do, it's not like I was ever going to turn this a job at FanSided into something that was going to pay me the Washington Post or what have you. It just wasn't going to happen. And travel is a major problem. And so are keeping benefits, and you can only make so much money to keep benefits. I was the perfect person to do that kind of work because I knew because I knew it. I accepted it. And if you're going to work in the industry, you have to pay your dues. And so I figured that, this wasn't my first writing job, and it probably won't be my last writing job. But I understood that going in. When you're 17, 18 years old and excited because you finally get the chance to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, and there's an audience there, and trust me, there's an audience there. And then you don't go up the ladder, or if you do find out you go up the ladder, then it becomes very frustrating because not only are you producing content for your own to meet your quota so you get paid, but you also have to plan every article that goes there. You got to work. If you're lucky enough to have a partner, there's always that once a week that the two of us had to sit down and go, okay, you're going to write about X and I'm going to write about Y, and hopefully our contributors will write about Z. Okay, if you got the contributors to write, then you had to edit, and sometimes that was really easy, and sometimes it was not, to be charitable. And so you have to make something readable. There might be a chance, if someone really wants to learn, that you could bounce something back and say, here, you said you were going to do A and you did B. Really, we want you to do A. And again, there wasn't a lot of incentive for us as quote unquote experts to give to writers, because you knew they weren't going to get paid. If they wanted to move up the chain, there were ways to do that. But yeah, it's much more than just writing. It was the social media work, which took, I think, a great deal of time. The planning, which took a great deal of time. Getting people to write, trying to not whip people, but coordinate people to do that and cover what needed to be covered, and then have your own life. Because it's sports. They play at night. You're working nights. If you seriously want to do this, that could be a problem. Do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend or partner of some sort that says, I wish we could go to the movies. Well, I'm sorry, I've got to cover this game between the last place Marlins and Pirates because my partner didn't show up, and that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm sorry, sit down and watch the game. My wife works second shift. It was great, but it will wear on you. I remember in April, going through the calendar and talking to my partner at the time and seeing that I wasn't going to get a day off until August. I was going to have to work my wife's birthday. I was going to have to work weekends. Doesn't mean that it was the exact same load every day, but there was no day that you were going to be able to take off. There was no day you're going to say, screw it, this is your responsibility today. And it wears on you because I don't care how much of a fan you are, once you get above a certain age and when you have real world responsibilities, you are not choosing to sit and watch every game and every pitch of every game, whether it starts at noon or at 10:15 at night. And every East Coast team makes a West Coast road trip. And so there were nights that I was up to 1:15, 1:30 watching a game. If you remember when we did the live post game shows after every game, I mean, some of those I did in the dark with my wife sleeping at 1:30 in the morning. Thankfully, one of my other partners took most of those because So keep that in mind when you read the article. I will say that I don't really know how good of a writer I am or am not. I've had people buy my stuff as far as freelance is concerned. When I do write something, I put the best effort in that I can into it. Try to make sure it's as clean as possible, and that I actually get out what I mean to say. To do that over 40 times a month gets rather hard to do. And so, in the comments of the Deadspin article, which always are interesting to read, article quality came up a lot. And I never promised that I was a good writer, but I tried my best to provide content that I thought was good. You're limited depending on if you're writing for a specific team or college or what have you. It's only the same 5 or 6 stories to repeat in a week over and over and over and over again. And it is true that you're going to be able to, that you do better with search engines, which drives every, performance, by writing on a regular basis, by having 1 or 2 pieces of fresh content a day on the site. You have to do it. If you're going to write for a site, you have to do it. They're going to look and say, "Oh, you haven't written anything in 3 weeks. What the hell are you doing?" That comes and goes with the territory. I tried to get another job after an interim break at FanSided. Had never got an interview, and that hurt. That really hurt because I'm not a great writer, but I've edited a lot of garbage over the years, and so that just made it tough. That I didn't get that. That's not FanSided's fault at all. But I do think that in my case, I understood what was going on. I'd go have lunch with my mother and say I was doing this and this and this. And how much you getting paid, Ron? Blah. Why? Well, explain how it works and all that. As far as the people I worked for at FanSided, they were good. They were good. They wanted content, but what I will fault them on is that there wasn't a lot of effort to make sure that we were doing good content. If you write something, and I wrote 700 pieces for them in about 2 years. If you make a mistake and you don't know that you're making the mistake, and no one's saying to you, "Why are you writing it in this way?" then you're going to keep making the mistake. And when I was at Bleacher Report, they would go through every once in a while and they would grade us. And I didn't grade very well. But they never made real clear what they were grading you on. And they would grade you on stuff that was from before they copy edited everything. And for anyone who's going to present you, I wasn't also getting paid for what I was doing at BR for the most part. But if anyone is going to publish your content, I do think they have the obligation to sit down with you and make sure that your stuff is readable. Now, I did well enough at Bleacher Report to have stuff that ran on the front page, that was edited multiple times, and was eventually paid for my work. So I couldn't have been that bad. But with FanSided, there was no, where we got audited, they liked the stuff that we were doing. So we were doing what they wanted to do. As far as skills for a writer, no. I mean, I could go through with my writers what I thought was good and wasn't. But I had to be careful, especially because of volunteers. If something sucked, I couldn't tell them, dude, that sucked. Do it again. Because they were volunteers. And they're trying to get their name out there and exposure. And because a lot of them were younger, they were just, their girlfriends were forwarding things on social media. And it was, okay, you got your name in the publication. That's good. And that was important, and that gave enough buzz. Most people leave afterwards and they don't do it again because they realize that, the dirty secret to all internet writing is that it's work. There is no eternal views. There is no Hemingway. There is no whatever to say. It just doesn't flow out of you. And if you had trouble doing that once a week, which is what our writers should have been doing, imagine doing that between 30 and 50 times a month and talking about the same things over and over and over again. And of course, everyone wants the slideshows. Why do you want slideshows? They draw page views. And that helps with search engines and blah, 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 blah. FanSided isn't the only site to do that. In fact, most sites will do that. That's not just a FanSided problem. Having said that, I got enough of a good experience out of that I made lifelong friends. That I learned more about myself. I had to challenge myself and do this stuff, and I did it. Was it good? No one really complained about it, and trust me, I wrote stuff at Bleacher Report that people would tweet at me about. They go, "Oh, there's tweets there." I'm not saying I didn't make my fair share of mistakes. Carl Pohlad is dead, and I wrote an article about the Minnesota Twins. I didn't realize that. That was bad, Ron. Bad. But maybe with this expose and their expose of SB Nation that came out last year, someone might come through with the money to actually create websites to give people who want to write in this business an opportunity to do so and get reasonable money for. Because the internet is the great equalizer. 20 years ago, if you wanted to be a writer, you'd write about your local high school, you'd write about your local college, or for heaven's sake, your local middle school, and you'd be, instead of writing about the New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox or the Washington Redskins or the Montreal Canadiens or whatever your passion is, you'd be stuck writing about Susie Cream Cheese and how she scored the winning basket in a 32-31 snore fest for the Forget-Me-Not Middle School of Walla Walla, Maine. And you better spell cream cheese correctly or grandma is going to call you or email you or email your editor and tell you what an idiot you are. How dare, you spelled Susie with an S and spelled with a Z and blah, 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 blah. And that happens more than you think. I mean, people, if you make a mistake, people will not forgive you. That's part of the business. But there does have to be a better way to teach people how to write, because in this day and age, you can watch anything. Between all the sports leagues having packages, you can look. I covered Washington teams from Burlington, Vermont. I also did a lot of homework on it too. But that was the key thing. I learned how to do that and could watch the games, which you just, like I said, 25 years ago, you couldn't do that. And so you're not going to get people who are interested in writing to do this by saying, oh no, you go to the College of Sacred Moo and you write about the field hockey game tomorrow afternoon. And then we'll see how you're doing. I mean, how long are you going to stay and do that for? $8 an hour. You're just not going to do it, or how about the, men's intramural basketball game? Oh, good. Fraternity A beat fraternity B, and you spell all the names right. I mean, that doesn't get you any passion, but it does teach you how to write. And repetition, if you're going to do this, is important. So what can be done to give people who want that chance to do that the opportunity to do so and not feel like they're being exploited? Because, like I said, I know most of all the people that I work with at FanSided that were above me, I didn't feel like they were exploiting me. I knew that I didn't have the advantage into the relationship, but they weren't saying you need to do more. On the other hand, the last job I did, I left because I knew I wasn't going to get paid. I wasn't going to meet quota, and it was just me. It was a situation that really was not going to work. They asked me to stay. They really needed that site filled. I hope they fill it. I hope they find someone who absolutely loves the Washington Capitals and can do a decent job. That person wasn't me, and that's okay. I left with my head held high, but as I said, there's nothing in that article that struck me as wrong at all. So, all right, what would you do in the chat? And tell me in the comments below. What do you think a good solution is? What should happen for young men and women who care about sports or care about things in general, who want to learn how to write and cover a subject? What's the best way to do that? What's the best way to give kids an opportunity to do that? Let me know in the suggestions. All right, I'm Ron Juckett. This is on my channel. Most of my stuff these days you can find at Retro Sports Network. I call all sorts of simulated games from the past and do some handy dandy videos. So hit that like button and subscribe here and at Retro Sports Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Ron Juckett, and I'll talk to you the next time. Thank you very much.